This is a Musclecat Media production.
Welcome back to Baseball Expats. After a lengthy weekend of baseball, to be honest, I'm knackered, but the show must go on. Shout out to Eric Balnar for making me stay up till all hours of the night in order to record a podcast. But look, it's the work that we do. In all seriousness, a great weekend for me at the baseball. First time that I've been there for probably 5 or 6 years. But I'm knackered. So, Eric, this is your doing. So thanks for making me do this.
Yeah, how was it? What was give me the flyby of Busch Stadium.
Yeah, it was good, man. Like it's honest, it's the first time that I've been there probably. I mean, it's been since pre-COVID. And I mean, not a lot has changed. And the thing that I love about Busch Stadium is that it doesn't try to be anything that it's not. I mean, you know that there's a lot of sort of quirky baseball stadiums out there that try to be, Spoon's not here, so we can make fun of him. Like, there's no pools in center field. There's no quirky things that's just like, we need to draw people to the ballpark. The baseball, I mean, it's like what Tyler said to us a couple weeks ago. It's like what he loves about Major League Baseball is that it's still about the baseball. And when you go to Busch Stadium, despite the fact that the team hasn't been great for the last couple of years, but historically that franchise has been good, and they built that ballpark with the thought in mind that it's going to be a downsize from what Busch Stadium 2 was, but we're going to build a ballpark that is a great baseball viewing experience. It's not going to be anything really crazy above and beyond that, right? And you get that when you go to Busch Stadium, and when the team is good and the crowds are big. They were pretty good on the weekend against Cincinnati. The Saturday game was really hot. We went to the Friday night game and had really good seats down the third baseline, and there was 30,000 there. And it just feels like summer to me. I mean, everybody has their opinion about what that means. What you feeling like summer means in Toronto would be completely different to what I feel like in St. Louis. But I think some of the conversations that you and I have been having with various people, in the last 4 or 5 months of doing this show, kind of resonated with me, and I wanted to kind of marinate on that while I was sitting at the ballpark, just to kind of think about some of those things. But yeah, it was cool, man, because it's just I took it all in, and I think we take for granted living in the U.S. whenever we did, and we could go see a baseball game anytime. So whenever we come back, me to the U.S., you to Canada, it's something that you want to do. You want to stay connected to it because you don't want to get too far away from it and let it sort of get away from you and just feel like it's something that's happening over there that we follow and we covered. You want to go and you want to get ingratiated in it. So I just love that ballpark, man, because it's about the baseball. It's not about going and being seen or seeing or anything else. It's about sitting down, having an ice cold beer, getting a hot dog, and sitting and watching 9 innings of baseball. Luckily enough for me, the Cardinals won on the Friday night that we went. And yeah, man, it was, look, I didn't want to leave the ball game, to be honest. I wanted to go back on Saturday, but it was 100 degrees and mom and pop with the kibosh on it. So that's a long-winded answer to your question, but I guess the short version is it was paradise for 24 hours, basically.
What do St. Louis actually do to connect you to the city or the team through the ballpark? Like, I'll give an example. Like, so when you go to Comerica, ballpark I've been to a few times in Detroit, it's right downtown. Even though it's a new stadium, they have that old brick feel to it. The history feels preserved, and you feel like you're in the heart of the city. You can see the atmosphere around it, and it has this nice new feel in sort of an area that's, grungy just 2 blocks away, but you feel like you're in the pulse of the city when you're at the game, but it's a very polished version of it. Toronto used to feel very disconnected because it was in a dome. It was outside. It felt different. But now when the dome is open, you see the CN Tower. They did a good job of angling the seats so you're closer to the action. They raised the bullpen so you're right on top of it. And they changed the whole outfield now. So you can just go with any ticket. You can meet your friends, and it becomes a very much melting pot, multicultural. Toronto's the most multicultural city in the world, but where all these people can kind of stand together and be united in baseball and chirps and the hot dog. So there's these little elements of those stadiums that I love that make you feel closer to the action. Does St. Louis have anything like that?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people were worried whenever they moved from Busch Stadium 2, because I don't know if you remember, it was one of those awful, like, cookie cutter round 50,000 seat stadiums, like everybody seemed to have in the 70s and 80s, right? There were probably 10 of them that were very similar. But the thing that kind of made Busch Stadium 2 different is that it had the individual arches at the top of the stadium because it was enclosed. You couldn't really see the skyline. You couldn't see any of that. So the arches were a bit iconic because it tied the ballpark back to the city. When they built Busch Stadium 3, which is where they currently play in the early 2000s, they changed the orientation and pushed it at the arch. So the arch is in dead straightaway center field. And dude, no matter where you are in that ballpark, you're looking at the St. Louis Arch. So there's no doubt where you are. And the connection to the city is felt. And St. Louis is a weird town baseball-wise because the tourism in the summer in St. Louis is dependent on how good the Cardinals are. St. Louis, a once great city, probably not at its height currently, just in terms of the direction that city's going. They do have an MLS team now. I was downtown on the weekend, and look, it's probably better than some periods that I've been there, but the Cardinals are St. Louis, right? So in some ways, the way that the Cardinals are tied to St. Louis is almost the reciprocal of what you're saying. It's like, what can the city do to tie itself back to the St. Louis Cardinals in a lot of ways? So they do that by everywhere else aside from the ballpark. You going, a lot of the architecture now, especially in new buildings, is mimicking the architecture from Busch Stadium. There's a bar that we went to maybe 2 or 3 blocks away called Patios that legitimately is built kind of as a replica, same brick, same steel work, all of that as the ballpark. So it's almost like the farther you get away from Busch Stadium, you still feel like you're in that sort of ballpark village area. And I think, as the city probably continues to grow in some ways, because let's be honest, St. Louis in the last probably 15, 20 years has had a bit of an economic downturn. And like I said, the city's tourism is really dependent on how good the Cardinals are. If the Cardinals aren't good, nobody's going to St. Louis from regional areas during the summer because there's just no reason. It's the one pilgrimage that families take essentially to go watch baseball. And if that baseball team's not good, it costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of time and effort. You got to get there. You get into the ballpark and a beer's $15. So if the team is good, the city is flourishing. And luckily enough, the St. Louis Cardinals are playing just good enough baseball at the moment to where there was a flood of people from out of town. I talked to people from Ohio, from Illinois, one from Louisiana, one from Tennessee. There was a guy from California that came in. So we were talking to people in the lobby that come from all over. That's what the Cardinal fan base largely is, right? Because it needs that to be able to support that team, because the city of St. Louis in and of itself, probably not big enough to support a team for 81 home games. But it really does need that fly in, fly out fan. Essentially what we are coming up from Little Rock. But that is the connection that the team and the city have and the relationship that they have. But it spans beyond that, right? Because it's beyond borders. As a lot of smaller market sort of teams are, because they need that additional support.
Man, I feel like if you don't have a stadium downtown, it just like completely. Baseball stadiums just have to be downtown. Any attempt in suburbia just will not work.
Well, the Braves were really worried about that, or I think a lot of people in Atlanta were really worried about that. Whenever they moved away from Turner Field and sort of moved into the northern suburbs, it's worked out okay for them. I think the model has to be right. The transportation. Well, that's exactly right. It'd be interesting to see sort of if people are going to make the pilgrimage to north of Atlanta, if that team's not any good. You're right. It's easier to say, all right, we'll go there for the weekend. We'll stay downtown. It's easy to get to the ballpark, whatever. But if the team's not good and the ballpark is a menace to get to, then I think it certainly changes the conversation. But I'm with you, man. There's absolutely nothing better than a ballpark in a large metropolitan area right in the middle of downtown, because you just never want to leave, right? For people like me and you, for major sports fans, like that's our Disney World.
Yeah. Unless you're like Dodger Stadium, which is just like you have to drive to get to it. You have to park in a stadium surrounded by parking lots. But I feel like that fits the culture of LA, right? Like cars, driving, waiting, sitting, waiting, in parking lot, freeway, car, waiting, pavement, more pavement, car, waiting, go to a ball game, spend 2 hours getting there, spend 2 hours getting back. That is part of the LA culture. So like they maybe have an exemption.
That's true, actually. You could fly in, fly out to a Dodgers game and just not even need a hotel room, right? You just go, well, the commute to and from the ballpark is going to take me so long that I'll fly in, fly out and just not even have a hotel room. Just getting to and from the airport will take me 48 hours.
Correct. Yeah. Anyways.
Well, on that kind of, the NL Central has been like sneaky good in the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, when you compare, I mean, everybody's talking about the NL West, right? For good reason. But when you actually compare records at the moment, don't worry about rosters, don't worry about trajectory of all the teams. But when you actually compare records at the moment, the NL Central and the NL West are pretty darn close. And actually, the fourth place team in the NL Central has a better record than the fourth place team in the NL West, that being the Cincinnati Reds, who avoided the sweep against the Cardinals in St. Louis today, and the Diamondbacks, who I think are a game over 500 at the time of recording in the NL West. But look, I think we can all agree that the National League West is the strongest division in baseball, top to bottom. There's the obvious caveat with that being that team that plays at Coors, the Colorado Rockies. And that's kind of been the case with them for the last sort of 5 to 10 years. But there was something MLB Network posted a couple days ago, and it really got me thinking. And it was talking about if you were to pit together the current NL West All-Star team. I love the concept of this too, by the way. Those listening in Australia talking about state of origin, I've been trying to explain state of origin to Americans. And the way that I've said it is it's basically like if you got an all-star team full of dudes from Texas and an all-star team full of dudes from California, and you like pitted them together in the middle of a season and it meant something. So like MLB Network doing this now was kind of timely with me having some of those conversations. But they were basically saying, what if we put together a team of the current best players in the NL West and pitted them against NL East All-Star team from those early 2000s. And I mean, really, that team is largely Yankees and Red Sox because they fought out that division. No offense to you, but Toronto in those, probably aside from Carlos Delgado, the Toronto Blue Jays probably weren't spoken about all that much. They were constantly in third place, even though they had some decent teams. It just so happened to be the division they were in. But look, I'll give you the teams, and then I want you to give me your best pitch for who you think the better of these two teams are. So we'll start with the present, the current NL West All-Star team. This is the team that MLB Network put together. Don't at us. We're just giving you the facts. So we'll go defensively. So the catcher they're saying would be Will Smith. On the infield, you'd have Freddie Freeman, Ketel Marte at second base, Manny Machado at third, and Mookie Betts at shortstop. It's a pretty good infield. Your outfield will be Corbin Carroll, Jackson Merrill, and Fernando Tatis Jr., and they've got Yamamoto as the starting pitcher. Oh, by the way, Shohei Ohtani, the designated hitter. For the AL East early 2000s All-Star team, they had Varitek at catcher. Carlos Delgado did make the cut, so he's playing first base. Brian Roberts of the Orioles be second base. A-Rod and Jeter on the left side of the infield. The outfield, how about this? Manny Ramirez, Gary Sheffield, Hideki Matsui, and the starting pitcher, Pedro Martinez. And of course, a designated hitter would have to be David Ortiz. This is the type of matchup that like you would love to put together on MLB The Show, and you could like run a simulation of it probably 100 times, and it would be 51-49. If you had to choose one of those two teams, I guess the era it's probably era dependent as well, because how well would this NL West team fare 20 years ago? How well would that team fare now? The game has certainly changed. But who are you taking between those two teams? I actually think it's a fascinating conversation.
I think it's pretty close too, and it is a good conversation. But I'm going to go with the current NL West for this reason. One, the early 2000s somehow gets like an early 5-year spread on this team, and we're just picking players to this day at this moment in the NL West. Like if you were to choose the NL West over the last 5 years since 2020, sort of in this Dodgers reign, it wouldn't even be a conversation that we're having right now. Like we have to handicap the NL West to 1 year because it wouldn't be close, if that kind of makes sense. Like Mookie Betts would be in the outfield, right? Like if that was the case. Now he's going down as shortstop, which then just opens up a debate. So I think you kind of have to look through it positionally and like a one-on-one matchup and see which, I guess, players that you would like to go with. So DH, are you going David Ortiz or Shohei Ohtani? I don't think Ortiz is a Hall of Famer, but I think it's Ohtani, right? Like he's probably the greatest player in the modern era. So there's 1-0. Will Smith versus Jason Varitek. They have nearly identical WAR, and Will Smith has played half as many of the years. He's already won 2 championships. Freddie Freeman versus Carlos Delgado. Freddie Freeman hit a walk-off grand slam in a World Series game and has won 2 World Series championships. So you're going Freddie Freeman. As good as Brian Roberts was, and he had a couple all-star years with the Baltimore Orioles, Ketel Marte has a higher WAR and he's got better individual seasons. So you're going 4-0. I'll probably give A-Rod over Manny Machado in the third base battle. The interesting one is Mookie Betts versus Derek Jeter. I would pick Mookie Betts one-on-one as a player because I think he's the best player in baseball right now, and that includes Shohei Ohtani. And he's won now 3 World Series. He's encroaching on that greatness like Derek Jeter. However, I mean, Mookie's only played shortstop for a shorter amount of time, right? Like he was an outfielder for all those years. I'm still giving it to Mookie Betts, though, over Derek Jeter. I know it's a big call, but he's now won 3 championships with 2 franchises. So far, we've gone through half the team, and there's just one position we've given an advantage for. The difference is the outfield, right? Like, you're probably going Manny over Corbin Carroll. You're probably going Gary Sheffield over Jackson Merrill. But I'd probably go Tatis over Hideki Matsui, right? Like Matsui had 1 or 2 great years with the Yankees, obviously won that championship. But Tatis is just, I mean, he's Tatis. He's a lot more fun. He's had some great seasons and he's still younger. And then I'll go Pedro over Yamamoto. So I'm only going 4 out of those, 11 spots that you've listed, one-on-one that I'm picking from the early 2000s AL East. The interesting debate, though, I think from all of this is Mookie or Derek. Like, that is fascinating that we've got to this point, but I think I'm going Mookie. What about you?
Yeah, it's funny that you've approached it sort of as a player-by-player discussion. I sort of looked at it like from a helicopter view. So this is why we're good together, right? We're yin and yang, because you zoomed in, whereas I kind of zoomed out. If you look at the current NL West, and we'll call it current as in, I mean, I think it's probably the last couple of years, looking at this team that MLB Network has put together. You've got 4 competitive teams, all with legit playoff aspirations, right? Real rivalries within that division. There's no off days in the NL West. I mean, unless you're at Coors, obviously. You've got this superhuman team with the Dodgers. You've got a high payroll team in the Padres, like the Giants. Devers landing there now has kind of made this interesting. Like, obviously, he wouldn't be on that team, but let's wait for like another 6 months, and Rafael Devers might be potentially on this team that we've talked about. Who knows what position he'd play at? He's not going to be the DH over Ohtani. I mean, the D-backs were the NL champs 2 years ago, right? And we're talking about them as like the 4th team in this division. So I think the 4 competitive team nature, even though the list that we just gave you is largely made up of Dodger players, it still would be a tough team to pick. Whereas with the AL East, they were very top heavy, right? I mean, we gave you the list just now. There was one player from the Orioles. There was one player from Toronto, and the rest were Yankees and Red Sox, right? I mean, every Yankees Red Sox playoff series, every series, not even a playoff series, back in the day was appointment viewing, right? I mean, there was a reason why Sunday Night Baseball, anytime they played a weekend series, was Yankees Red Sox. It drove people crazy. They were like, oh, well, Yankees Red Sox again. I feel like we have to watch them 45 times. Well, yeah, because they were compelling. You don't see that as much anymore because for whatever reason, that Yankees Red Sox rivalry just doesn't have the gusto at the moment, probably just because the Red Sox aren't playing great baseball. But I think because those 2 teams gave us so many unforgettable October moments that there is this nostalgia that sort of runs through the AL East of that time. You almost forget that there were any other teams in that division. And look, I think some of the high-end points that if you're going to pick one or the other, I mean, yes, you probably went about it the correct way if you're actually evaluating player by player who would win. But as I sort of pull out, you think about the cultural impact that the AL East, that those 2 teams had at that time. And look, that was the ESPN era as well. So that probably has something to do with it. Nightly highlights. There was something about knowing that you had to tune in to Baseball Tonight every single night to know what was happening. You couldn't just pull your phone out or go on the internet or look it up. And that probably adds to it. It was kind of the Pedro versus everyone era. So even though it was only 2 teams, it was just like they were just this Goliath out east. Whereas the amount of drama that we're seeing in the NL West, particularly this past week between the Dodgers and the Padres, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, it doesn't really, for me, have that sort of global all of baseball pop like the AL East did back then, but it could be because we're 20 years removed. I
actually disagree with that. I think that's exactly it. I actually disagree with that, right? Like, I think you're absolutely right. Like, it has this nostalgia era, and there's literally been movies now made about like that. It has the curse breaking era of the Boston Red Sox, which adds a whole other element to it. it had names like Jeter and Mariano, who were obviously a big part of that. And you're right, the Manny versus the world. Like I was trying to explain the "who's your daddy" chants that were going on to somebody that's like a newer fan, and like it's really hard to explain. But that was awesome, right? Like there's no taking away from that. But I'm going to go back to the point that I made earlier in this. This list that MLB Network gave is the early 2000s. It's an era. It chose like a span between 2000 and 2009 and took the best player at each position. This is just the current era. And I made the point earlier being like, who's better, Mookie or Derek? I'm looking at it now. It's not even close. Like Mookie Betts has played 8 less seasons. He's already got a higher career WAR, and he's already got the winning factor that Derek has because Mookie's won 3 championships and in 2 different leagues and with 2 different teams, and he's played in multiple positions around the field, whereas Derek's being limited to 1. Like Mookie is just objectively a better baseball player historically than Derek Jeter, who is completely overawed in this amazing, and he should be. He had a fairy tale career. But I actually think right now the NL West is having a bigger cultural impact on the global game of baseball than the AL was. And I think in 20 years, we'll look back on this when we can sit objectively, look back in history. We're going to say it was this era right now. One, their players are better, right? Like this is from 1 year versus an era of players. And I think the NL West team is better. 2, you have this Japanese cultural movement where it's like these Japanese players are coming over and dominating. And look how, I don't know, just look at some of the iconic names and moments that have been on this list. Like Freddie Freeman hit a freaking grand slam in the biggest moment you possibly could in a World Series game. Like that moment is going to live in folklore for the rest of time when it comes down to MLB moments, much like Pedro Martinez and his "who's your daddy" moments in that amazing run that the Boston Red Sox had. I think this is getting a bigger impact globally. So yeah, I don't know. I think if we were 14 years old and living through this and becoming baseball fans, and these were our formative moments to the sport, we would be saying a completely different answer. I think we just look on this more fondly because it was our high school years, because it was us first falling in love with the game and understanding it at a deeper level. Like you resonate with those always on nostalgia levels. Just like if you ask your dad right now what his favorite era of baseball is, he's going to name off baseball players that you were just like, who? So I don't know. I think objectively, this is a more impactful generation, but you're right. It's lacking the rivalry that the Yankees and Red Sox had.
Well, and I think that's the argument, right? Like you've hit the nail on the head. The argument is, do you tip the cap to better players, or do you tip the cap to, at least for the small sample size, to more memorable baseball? Not that those teams in the NL West haven't played memorable baseball. I mean, of course, like Freddie Freeman's home run you talk about, but that was in the World Series. It wasn't against an NL West opponent. I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that when you think about the early 2000s, you think about Yankees, Red Sox. You don't necessarily think about baseball right now and think Dodgers, Giants. You think about the players that are playing on those teams, or Dodgers, Padres. You think about the players that are playing on those teams. But you're right. It could be that 5, 10, 15 years from now, and I think it's a good point you make, because it probably is the reason why I'm susceptible to say that maybe that AL East team from the early 2000s could hold their own and could win a 7-game series against these NL West All-Stars. But yeah, there is that nostalgia factor. Whereas when you go back and you actually break down the numbers, you go, wow, what these guys in the NL West are doing is actually pretty impressive. And that makes it even more impressive, you talk about, because you're not even talking about an era. You're just picking a team today with guys that are on the field today in the NL West against Hall of Famers, basically from the AL East. And there's no telling how many Hall of Famers, future Hall of Famers, potentially were leaving out of what a current NL West All-Star team could be. So, no, look, I love when they do stuff like this.
Not
and
even
like
on
I
the
said,
list.
Say again?
Kershaw's not even on this list, right? Like, and because it's today. But like, if you're picking an era, Kershaw's going to go down as one of the greatest pitchers that's ever stepped on the mound ever, right? I know that his playoff record, people still tarnish him, but the dude's won 2 World Series rings, man. Like, at some point, you got to give his guy his dues.
Well, and does Cody Bellinger, peak Cody Bellinger, have a place to stand in that lineup if you're talking across a 10-year span? Peak Cody Bellinger probably does. Longevity Cody Bellinger, I would say no. So you're right. There's guys where you just go, oh, yeah, he played in that division in this era, and he's not there anymore, but he's been left out.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting way to look at it, but it is crazy. Like Jason Varitek is obviously revered now, but Will Smith is just objectively better, right? Like it is fascinating to look at. I want to see the career. Well, give me 1 second while I look up the career WAR for Manny Machado right now. Like I love that WAR is now like just commonplace language. Like it didn't really exist when we were in those early 2000s, right? So Manny's at a 60.6 right now. What was Alex Rodriguez? What do you think? I actually don't know because I'm looking it up right now. What do you think A-Rod's career WAR was?
I would say that he was higher than that. Look, we talked about Kenny Lofton a couple of weeks ago, and he was in the 70s. I would say A-Rod probably in the 80s or 90s.
Oh my God. You are so far off. His career WAR is 117.4.
Okay, that's ridiculous. So yeah, I mean, well, then we're giving A-Rod the nod at third base, aren't we?
He won. He had the highest WAR in the MLB in 8 different seasons that he played. Derek Jeter's career WAR is in the 70s.
It's kind of a like a side quest that we're going on here, but it's funny how good he was and good he knew everybody was, and WAR wasn't even a thing whenever he was playing. Maybe it was on the fringes toward the end of A-Rod's career. But it's so cool with a guy like that then you can go back with this measure that everybody was so reluctant to actually make commonplace, and you go back and you say, well, actually, if we apply this now advanced statistic on somebody in an era where this advanced statistic wasn't necessarily readily available, it stacks up. And when you compare it against guys of his ilk in that era and otherwise, it is one of the best of all time.
So if Derek Jeter was 70, what do you think Manny was? I now know the answer, so I will refrain from guessing. What do you think Manny Ramirez's career WAR was?
Ooh, maybe he was closer sort of to where I was thinking A-Rod was, maybe in the 80s.
Yeah, 69. So, which is crazy, right? So the outfielders, that's where it kind of doesn't stack up, right? But again, like they haven't had the longevity. I mean, Fernando Tatis has only played 6 years right now. Like he's in the middle of his 6th season. And he has a WAR of 25 at the moment. So he's only 26 years old. He could have another 12 years of baseball ahead of him. So the outfield is very, very young. That's why I think if you actually did an era thing, you'd have to have Mookie in the outfield. And Mookie, once again, is already a higher career WAR than Manny and Derek Jeter. And he's got another 8 years left in his career. That's insane to me. Like he's on the A-Rod level. Anyways.
Yeah, it's absurd.
But you wanted to talk about rivalry,
Well, yeah. So just to put a bow on that, it's absurd that we were talking about whether or not Francisco Lindor is a Hall of Famer today. I mean, that was a discussion that we were having just because of that exclusive company he was in with 60 plus WAR and over 250 home runs. But I think if you look at Mookie Betts right now, he is most definitely, if not currently, a year away from being a lock to Cooperstown.
He's already like he was a lock before last year. Like this dude has won 3 championships. He's been the best player in baseball for a long time. Like he is an absolute lock beyond lock. But just to put a bow on your rivalry point, though, how many? Because I knew you were going to come in hot with this AL West and NL East one. And your point about the Yankees Red Sox rivalry is legit. Because, all right, how about this? How many times, without looking it up, have the Dodgers and Padres, and that was electric like last week, right? Like, I love that there's beef between them. I love that there's been beef in the last couple of years in the playoffs between them. They're only 120 miles apart from each other, those two stadiums. So they're very, very close in nature. Both owners like to spend money. Obviously, the Dodgers are a bit of a tier ahead. So there's most certainly and clearly a rivalry there now. How many playoff series have the Dodgers and Padres played historically? And what is their record overall, do you think?
Oh, well,
who has the edge?
The overall record, I'm going to be no chance of getting.
No, you're going to be a better chance than you think. You just have to pick one team. It's a 50-50 chance.
The issue with this for me is like thinking about just at least my lifetime. I can't think of a lot of times or like links of time where they were good at the same time. So the Padres, when the Padres were good, LA would have some down seasons and vice versa. Right now they're good at the same time. And that's why we're seeing sort of this budding rivalry. You're asking me how many playoff series in history they've played against each other. I mean, there's probably, I don't know. I'll say 20.
You would be off. In fact, if we took every moment from COVID and before then, going all the way back to the dawn of the beginning of time, there were exactly 0 times that the Padres and Dodgers met in the playoffs. In fact, every
totally
time
stitched me up here. This is such a stitch.
But no, but you were right,
That's incredible.
right? When you were saying, yeah, but you were right in your thinking and saying every time I think back, you were just like, I can't really think of one, but there must be, right? Like that's what I was thinking too. I was like, I can't remember an epic Dodgers and Padres playoff series outside of the last few years, because exactly what you said. Every time the Dodgers are good, the Padres are bad. Every time the Padres are good, the Dodgers are bad. Literally 2022 was the first time they met in the playoffs. They've met 3 times in the last 4 years in the playoffs. It's a 2-1 edge right now for the Dodgers. Never before COVID and since COVID have they met in the playoffs, which is crazy for a team that has been in the same division forever and a year and so close to each other in nature and rivalry. So we are right now quite literally at the birth of a new rivalry. And I kind of love it because there's so like we're watching history be created between these teams right now. And in 20 years, we're going to be referencing these playoff series. So yeah, isn't that wild? I couldn't believe it that the all-time record is Dodgers 7, Padres 5 in all-time playoff games.
Well, in a lot of ways, it's cool. Yeah, I mean, you're right. I should have just backed my thinking because I can't remember a time in my. I just must have thought since the 60s, there must have been 10, 15 series that happened there that I was just not privy to.
Me
because
too.
I didn't exist. I didn't exist on this planet. But you bring up that sort of, I mean, starting kind of with that 2022 National League Division Series where the Padres just stunned the Dodgers, right? That Padres team wasn't necessarily supposed to do much. But was that the year that the Dodgers won like 111, 112 games or something? So that kind of really gave...
just kerplunked.
Yeah, it just gave this rivalry a bit of teeth. And I think the fact that both teams have gone, you know what, we're going to spend money. We're not going to be like, that team's good, they're in their era. We're just going to hang back and let that era end before we build. I love that the Padres have been like, nah, the Dodgers are going for it, we're going for it. And I think it sort of all started in that 2022 season whenever the Padres knocked off the Dodgers. Then the Dodgers come back, win a World Series a couple years later. But the Padres are just, they have this like, we're not going to be little brother energy. And it is honestly making for one of the best rivalries, I think, that we have seen. I mean, it's turning into that. It's a shame that it's not the old schedule format where they would just play each other like a bajillion times. And it seems like every second week you could turn on the TV and the Padres and Dodgers would be playing each other. But look, they have made it known that like the Giants no longer enter the equation when it comes to NL West rivalries. It's not Padres Giants. It's not Dodgers Giants where maybe it was many, many years ago. I would argue that the best rivalry in baseball right now, hands down, is the Padres and Dodgers. And I'm staying up late at night while I'm here in the U.S., jet lagged to high hell to stay up and watch those games for two teams that I don't necessarily care about. I don't necessarily want the Dodgers to win and run away with that division, but it's compelling must-see TV. The Dodgers are compelling must-see TV anyways, but now that they just kind of have this thorn in their side, it's a team with a lot of swagger, and Mike Schill, the former Cardinal manager, who's very unpredictable and he's very unconventional. He almost fits that team really well. Like it's a really fun rivalry. And I mean, it was only escalated earlier this week when they just hit Shohei, and Shohei's like, don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. He'll inevitably come back and hit some sort of dagger home run against them later in the year, probably in the playoffs. But dude, it has been so much fun to kind of watch this bubble. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it started from that 2022 season when the Padres knocked off the Dodgers and has just kind of grown from there.
However, for it to become a proper rivalry, the Padres are going to have to win one here, right? Like this can't just be the era where the Padres tried really hard. They had a bunch of exciting games, but the Dodgers just dummied them. Like Padres tried to stand up to them, but they couldn't do it. Like for historically in 20 years from now, if we want this to be the dawn of a new rivalry, they are going to have to win something here to have more than just a couple championships for the Dodgers. Oh, by the way, as we wrap this up, the St. Louis Cardinals and Boston Red Sox have played in double the amount of playoff games as the Padres and the Dodgers have, and they're in different leagues.
Well, I mean, those teams are also 80 years older than the Padres are.
Still crazy. Like, that shouldn't happen, right? Like, how many times do they have to meet for that to happen? Anyways.
The one thing that would be interesting is what if Juan Soto had never gone to the East Coast and he's still playing for the Padres?
Yeah, I mean, that's where you would go for that era, right? Like, that's why I'm kind of compelled to say I would like to, maybe we revisit this next week and we come back with an NLS era team where Juan Soto's in the outfield and Mookie Betts in the outfield, and we'll have to choose a different shortstops. They're probably going to lose to Derek Jeter in that case, right? But I think that outfield would stand a better chance if you took a range of, since COVID, the early 2000s, and you had Soto in there and you had Mookie as an outfielder listed and maybe Kershaw as your pitcher. So I think that's the only proviso I would look. So yeah, NL West, though, I think objectively just better. So yeah, crazy. Great chat, though. An enlightening one that enacted many parts of my brain cells that I didn't know need enacting. So thank you for that.
Well, we might have to build these two teams out in MLB The Show and just play a 7-game series just to see what happens.
I like this.
Well, look, it's getting very late U.S. Central Time. Eric and I will sort of look at where teams are at the halfway point next week. Interestingly enough, our friendly wager between the Blue Jays and the Cardinals, we're a half a game apart, nearing the halfway season, so it's going perfectly. It's about as well as we could have hoped for.
First off, you would technically have the edge right now, but the Jays have a game in hand, and if they win that game, remember, I have the tie between the teams just because of the betting market favorites. You were originally going to give me games. I said, because I'm a great guy, objectively an unbelievable human being, I said, Andrew Reynolds, don't worry about it. I don't need games, but I would like the tie. So that tie might come in pretty handy. So maybe I shouldn't have been such a stand-up dude.
Yeah, it was kind of a throwaway. I was like, whatever, it's not going to come down to that. And here we are near halfway into the season, and they are separated by a half a game. Tie goes to Canada. Look, you know what? With some of the social and political tensions that have happened between the U.S. and your wonderful country, I'm happy for the tie to go to Canada. Anyways, we will step aside. On the other side of the break, Eric will be joined by Spoon. The boys have been on fire, just quietly, so it does pay to follow both Eric and Spoon, but they'll give their best for the week ahead. I got to go to bed. It's been a long weekend of baseball, a lovely one. Eric, it's been great chatting to you.
Yeah, I'll let you know. I'll shoot you a text about what you should jump on as a bit of an exclusive. But yeah, I got Spoon on the line. He's waiting in the wings. So you go to bed, and Spoon and I will go to work. Andrew Reynolds has gone to bed. He's deserted us, so it's just us now, Spoon. You missed a good chat, though. We were talking rivalries, Spoon, as we welcome you into the pod for some picks. Out of curiosity, I mean, like, Rolsey and I, we both grew up in, the North American culture and the North American system of this all. So I'm wondering, as an Australian and more of a relatively new baseball fan, like, I'm not saying that you're not a newbie, but, you weren't born as a 3-year-old and baseball was just on TV. What rivalries in baseball first drew you to the game in Major League Baseball?
I think it's hard to go past Red Sox Yankees. A lot of my early exposure was like just those games that would be on ESPN. It would be like, greatest games of the 2000s, and not really knowing anything about baseball at the time, like you said, but just instantly knowing that the gravity of the moment and the best ingredients in a rivalry are the two teams don't like each other is important, but also like how many epic games have they shared, and so many of those kind of series fed into that. That even more recently probably hasn't been the case. You seem to get so much legacy out of a rivalry like that, and it helps that they're probably two of the biggest franchises in baseball as far as a brand, even if they're not always competitive.
Yeah, where do Dodgers and Padres sit right now for you on the rivalry scale?
Right now, I don't think there's anything better to watch. Two teams that genuinely don't like each other. In the last 5 years, have had, I think, 3 or 4 playoff series against each other, with some pretty epic moments for both teams, and it still seems to be like steadily escalating every time. I mean, it was only when we were speaking on the weekend that Tatis and Ohtani both got hit in the same inning, so it doesn't look like it's fizzling out. Whereas you could potentially look at something like a Red Sox and a Yankees and argue that it might be fizzling out a little bit when Red Sox are trading away their best players.
I'm going to catch you up on the chat in a very high level one. Just to maybe you need to go back and listen to the chat if you're just joining us for the pick segment or not, but. The gist of it is we agree Yankees, Red Sox is the rivalry, but we spent a while comparing basically an all-star team from the early 2000s of the AL East, which was effectively only Yankees and Red Sox players, plus Carlos Delgado, plus Roberts, plus, a handful of players from the Jays and Orioles, versus an all-star team of the NL West right now. Not even an era, not even going back the last 5 years where you'd have Juan Soto in the mix there too. And I think resoundingly the NL West is more talented now than what the best of team was of the AL East. And you'll have to go back and listen to reasons why. We've already debated this. But that's basically where this conversation came from. And we started talking about rivalries, and we were both shocked to learn that the Dodgers and Padres have only ever played in 3 playoff series ever, and they've been in the last 4 years. Like, we could not believe that. So, I mean, I think we're watching a rivalry be created right now. Is it ever going to have the same luster as Yankees, Red Sox? We'll never say never, but you need probably a century of history there. But these are the moments, these early goings. Like, we're watching the birth of a rivalry, because even though they're 120 miles apart, I don't think it existed before.
Out of curiosity, did you name a lineup in that NL West right now team, or were you just kind of loose?
Now, this wasn't our lineup for it, by the way, and you can tell me if we're missing anybody. This will actually be good value here, because this came from MLB Network. So we didn't actually name the team, and it came just before the Devers trade, although I don't know where you put him in. And I had one issue with it, which I'll explain when I go through it. But DH was Shohei Ohtani. Versus the DH on the AL East was David Ortiz. The catcher was Will Smith versus Jason Varitek. First baseman, Freddie Freeman versus Carlos Delgado. Ketel Marte at second base versus Brian Roberts. Manny Machado at third versus A-Rod. Mookie at short versus Derek Jeter. Corbin at outfield versus Manny. Jackson Merrill at outfield versus Gary Sheffield. Outfield, Fernando Tatis versus Hideki Matsui. And the pitcher was Yamamoto versus Pedro. Now, I mean, this is just as it is right now. If you're going in an era thing, you would have Mookie in the outfield easily. You'd have Soto in the outfield easily. By the way, we also decided that Mookie is resoundingly better than Derek. Like, there's no debate. He's a better player than Derek Jeter historically. And he's still got 8 more years of his career. But anyone we're missing, do you think, from that NL West conversation right now?
I'm not sure I'm having Will Smith right now. I'd probably be more inclined to, who have you got? I'm biased, but I'd probably lean towards Gabriel Moreno right now. It's probably a bit of a wash, and Moreno being on the IL doesn't really help my argument there. I just think the Dodgers do a lot of like platooning with their catchers and that sort of thing, a lot of off days. And it's probably the weakest position of the lot, right? Like, I can't think. I mean, the Padres go a little bit of a platoon. The Giants catch is really good. His name's escaping me. He's got like the best defensive arm in baseball. So if you wanted to go that way, as far as more like a game controlling kind of catcher, I'd probably potentially go him, because Will Smith's been dropping off on that front for a while. And I guess maybe you could. It probably is Yamamoto, isn't it? I was trying to think that there's some really nice pitchers in the Giants rotation that are still kind of hanging in there at the moment. Like Robbie Ray's been having a great season. Corbin Burns was going superb, but he's on the injured list as well. I'd probably agree with almost all of it. It'd be hard to really change too much. Jackson Merrill, maybe. Like, could you tweak some of the outfield spots a little bit? Teoscar Hernandez, maybe, for the Dodgers.
T.O.
Yeah, it might be the miss.
I mean, I think that's going to be your homework for Friday, to be honest, is give me your post-COVID NL West era team, right? So this is early 2000s AL East.
Yeah.
One game, right? And you get them in their peak, right? So the early 2000s AL East would have designated hitter David Ortiz, peak Jason Varitek, although you could go Jorge Posada, but you'd also have first base at Carlos Delgado, right? When he was hitting mashing for the Toronto Blue Jays. A-Rod in his prime at third base for the New York Yankees, Derek Jeter at short, right? Like, you're picking era players where you might say, oh, maybe in an individual year there was someone that was better. Yeah. We also discovered that A-Rod was just out of this world. We knew that already, but can you guess without looking? I did this to Rolsey. What was A-Rod's career WAR?
70.
So Rolsey said 80 because I told him before that Derek Jeter was 70. So do you want to adjust your guess now that I'm telling you that Derek Jeter's career WAR was 70?
No, I'm going to leave it.
0.4. He led the league in WAR on 4 different years.
Wow.
Or 8 different years. 8 different years, sorry. 17.4 career WAR. He had a 10.4 season in the year 2000 when he was with Seattle. And then he declined when he went to the Yankees, ripping off years of, or the Rangers and the Yankees, ripping off years of 8.3, 8.8, 8.4, 8.6, 9.4, 5. Don't know what happened there, but he bounced back with a 9.4 the next year.
Yeah, okay. I was working on like peak of 7-ish.
That's what we were thinking.
And I do always forget some of those like Mariners, like those early years. I kind of forget some of the longevity there. And obviously it was, natural supplement aided some of that longevity. But yeah, dude,
he was so good.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to see anyone beat that, I don't think.
Unless Mookie's the only one that could do it if he has another 10 years of peak performance.
What's Aaron Judge right now?
Ooh, good question. Let's take a look.
Because that's where I'd be going as far as beating that, just given on.
But he's at 58.1 and he's older. Dude, yeah. Mookie Betts, his career WAR right now is at 73.
So do you have
he's
Judge
an
or Mookie?
8-time All-Star, an MVP.
You have Mookie finishing higher than Judge when they both call it time?
Well, I mean, Mookie, yeah, I think in almost every aspect, right? Like right now, Mookie, I mean, some of his years have been ridiculous, right? Like he's had a 10.7 WAR season, a 9.8 WAR season, an 8.6 WAR season. Last year was 4.8 and he played 116 games, I think Mookie is the best player in the league.
More WAR than Aaron Judge when they both retire. If he's only got a 15 or so lead and Judge is putting up 10s now still or 11s.
How sustainable is Judge, though? I know we've been saying that for 3 years. Interesting chats, though.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, then the only other one you could look at potentially is Soto, right? He's at 40. He's 26.
Yeah, that is a great point.
There's no one else who's doing that. Like by the time he was in his age 23 season, he put up like 20 WAR. That doesn't happen.
So, I mean, if you take a look at the active WAR leaders, Mike Trout is at 86.2. He's not going to get to that 120 mark where A-Rod is sitting. Mookie's at 73. He'd have to get 50 in the next. See, he could do it. I mean, if he plays another 8 years and goes at a ridiculously high level, it's possible. But Freddie Freeman's at 62. He's 35. He's not getting there. Goldschmidt's third on the list. He's 37 at 64, so he's not going to get there. The only one is Francisco Lindor, maybe, is at 52.7, and he's 31 years old. You're right, Juan Soto. He's at just about under 40.
Yeah, man. Mookie,
what the hell, Matt Chapman? Matt Chapman's 20th? Wow.
The D-War loves him.
I did not expect that. Like, that is... It's actually unfathomable. I can't speak right now. Like how good that is for A-Rod.
Yeah.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, speaking of unfathomably good, let's just get to our pick spoon. 2 picks from you, 2 picks from me. You had a good weekend again, my friend. You helped me out with that performance double on the weekend. I came through with an Avalanche pick. I've got another Avalanche pick for you. And I've got a pick that I'm debating whether I do a player performance double on, but I'll start that off with that one. I'm going Spencer Schwellenbach. How do you pronounce his name?
SS.
Schwellenbach.
Yeah, I pronounce it SS from now on.
SS, yeah. Spence, big Spency. I like his line. He's got some good value tomorrow pitching against the Mets. You can get him at 260 for 7+ strikeouts. He struck out 11, 4, 9, and 8 over his last 5, including 8 versus the Mets. The last time that the Braves played the Mets, SS was on the mound. He's struck out. The Mets have struck out a lot more lately as well in the last week, striking out just over 8 1/3, and that's kind of above their season average mark, which was around 7.5 before. So They're striking out a little bit more than often. I like the Schwellenbach play at 7+ at 260. Is that range for you? You're the master at this. Is that like top up range? Do I double that? Do I couple that with a win for the Braves as well? Like, what do you think?
I think you can double it with a win. I wouldn't be topping up against the Mets. The Mets are just one team, acknowledging what you said about the recent kind of form. This year, I've just found them really hard to get strikeouts against because you've got Soto up there, 4 times a game, and he's just fouling off so many pitches. Alonso's kind of been making really good contact. So, like, I'm happy to play against the Mets with a 6 or a 7, like you said, but I'd be amazed if there were many games this year where a starter managed 8, 9, 10, which is sort of more in that top-up range. And to your point, you probably want to be maybe looking at a team like the Pirates or the Marlins or something like that, or definitely the Rockies to be climbing that ladder. But if you were to go the double with the win, I think you'd be getting a nice price given they're both kind of around even money, and just having a look at it.
176 right now.
Yeah, so you can get Schwellenbach 6. Did I just nail that? I think I did.
No, Schwellenbach is at, I was saying at 7, but we could go. We could go 6 here. There's
6 and the win at 285 is arguably
probably the play.
A nicer play than 7 at 240. Just given same old logic as always. If he's getting 6, things are probably going well. If he's not getting 6, he might be lit up and they're not winning anyway.
Yeah, 6 in the win at 285. Let's lock that in because you're right. It does stick with my logic of the over strikeouts, and to your logic, if he's striking dudes out, he's in the game longer and they're probably winning. Braves playing good baseball lately too. All right, I'm locking that in. Spency at 6 and the win at 285.
I think he's going to have to be medium-sized Spence because Spencer Strider is just like, a glute monster. Like he's just got that electric lower half physique that probably has him as big Spence and therefore
just Spency. Just Spence. We'll just call him Spence.
Medium-sized Spence.
All right, what's your first?
So fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 7 times, shame on Eduardo Rodriguez.
I knew you were going E-Rod.
Arizona D-back starter who I still believe has good strikeout stuff. I just can't prove it yet because he doesn't continuously put any sort of consistency into his outings. He's been back from the IL now, making sort of 4 or 5 starts. Some have been good, some have been not great. But given the Corbin Burns injury and some of the back-end bullpen stuff, 4 guys from Arizona this year, 4 pitchers have needed Tommy John, and arguably their 3 best pitchers, like Corbin Burns, Justin Martinez, and AJ Puck all needing Tommy John is just brutal. So E-Rod's just going to go out there every 5 days, regardless, unless maybe the D-backs do blow things up. But right now, I'm still a little bit optimistic, and this next sort of week, as we touched on last Friday, is going to be pivotal. So to kick things off with the road series against the White Sox, player performance double, had a bit of success on the weekend with the DeGrom one. So tomorrow we can get E-Rod for 6 strikeouts and the D-backs to win at $3.25. And I think that's a pretty nice way to play and kick off the first of 2 for me this week.
I was also looking at that series, at that game tomorrow too, because the under kind of was tantalizing me. I think the line was set at 9. But E-Rod, that's what I was looking at, right? Since he's been back on the IL, he's allowed 2 runs or less on 3 of his starts. So that is some positive signs. I don't think the White Sox are going to – they're playing the White Sox, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not going to win again, right? Like, just came off a series with the Jays. I have trouble seeing them parlaying again to another big offensive explosion. I just don't think they're going to score a lot. I think this is prime position for E-Rod. I agree with your pick here. I was looking at the under because I think this is like a prime, like 6-2, 6-1, 5-3 kind of game.
The D-backs are banged up too. Like Moreno's on the IL, Corbin Carroll's missed the last 2 games. Listen just quickly how disgusting this starting lineup was for the D-backs. And part of it is Torrey being Torrey, and he just never wants to pick up a game 3 sweep. He just like kind of phones it in. Gerardo Perdomo batting 1, Ildemaro Vargas batting 2, who was in AAA a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. Haven Smith batting 3, Josh Naylor 4, Gino Suarez 5, Randall Grichuk 6, Tim Tawa 7, Alec Thomas 8, and Jose Herrera 9. That is not the team I fell in love with on opening day.
No, Grichuk at 6.
Yeah, Pavin Smith at 3. Come on, he had like a really good April and has not done a single thing since. So I think a couple of those guys might be back in tomorrow if it were just off days. But even without like Gabriel Moreno, who's such a big contact guy, I like it. I think it'll be a low scoring game. And if Erod's just semi-competitive, the D-backs will get away with an ugly one.
All right, my second one, I'm going with an Avalanche. It remains undefeated. Got it done on the weekend again. Still good value, although not the 305 one we were hoping for. But there was still like 2. There was big underdogs on the Saturday game too, which was crazy to me. We're going to Avalanche the Minnesota Twins, and I don't know who they are because they were unbelievable at one stretch, and now they've been terrible lately. They're 1-9 in their last 10. They've lost 3 in a row, but they're playing at home versus Seattle, and they're underdogs right now. They're paying $2 on the nose, double money. Seattle's playing okay. Like they're just kind of playing the way they're playing. They're 39-37. They win 3 games. They lose 2 games. They win 2. They lose 1. They lose 2. They win 3. Like they just keep trucking along around that 500 mark. I just can't see sitting at the end of the week, saying the Twins have lost 13 of 14. They're going to win one of the next 3 games. I'm avalanching the Minnesota Twins.
I like it. Which starters do you get? Because there's obviously a couple there that I'm quite fond of in Lopez and Ryan. You got Paddock on Wednesday. Joe Ryan on Thursday. That'll be nice. And then Woods Richardson Friday. Probably circling Thursday. Yeah,
like you feel like you're going to get Ryan in that middle one is the one. George Kirby's been a bit disappointed. I think that's the matchup that he was going against him.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like though when you're going against the one you want tomorrow is when Castillo's starting, right? So, I think that's the way it goes. But there's the opening game too. Like I think it's a 4-game series, right? So like that's what's interesting to me about it is it's in Minnesota. They're on a 3-game losing streak. It's not going to be a 7. They're going to win one of these games. You hope they can do it early so you're not just like laying 7 units to make 8. But but I don't think you're going to lose money here. And we've piled up some wins on the Avalanches this year. It's a long-term play, so we're going with the Avalanche with Minnesota. All right, second pick for you.
I like it. So mine will be on Wednesday, and I got a sneaky feeling we're going to get this home team as a home dog, and it's the Phillies heading to Houston against the Astros. Ranger Suarez slated to start for the Phillies. He's been superb with a 2.2 ERA on the year. But Framber Valdez is, as far as contract years go for a starting pitcher, he's been terrific. He kind of had a little shaky start earlier on, but his strikeout numbers recently have been amazing. His ERA is a smidge over 3. He's not walking many guys, and he's so good at pitching to contact and such a good ground ball kind of fielder, a ground ball kind of pitcher as well. I think there's a good chance the Phillies will be favourites. If not, we might be looking at even money. But the Astros, man, it's a team we talked about at the start of the year as maybe being, this is the end of the dynasty. They chose to let Kyle Tucker go. They chose to let Alex Bregman go. It just looked like a team that was going to retool a little bit. And all of a sudden, they're 12 games over 500.
12?
Yeah, which is just like not what I had in mind at all. They're 5 games clear in the division. Like I thought the ceiling for this team was going to be fighting for a wild card spot with probably some of those teams like the Blue Jays in the AL East. All of a sudden, and part of it's been the Rangers being a bit underwhelming and the Mariners just like ever sort of average, consistently average. But I definitely didn't have the Astros at 45 wins, 3rd best record in the American League. And I feel like a lot of the prices I've seen recently too haven't really reflected how well they are going. And a team like the Phillies just go out there, clear favourites in a lot of games, even like we saw on the weekend in that Met series too. So I think if Vegas want to keep favouring Philly like that, I'll take Astros, whatever the price is. I mean, even if they are $1.80 favourites, I'm happy to take it. But I think, crystal balling the price a little bit, we might be able to get a bit of value if they are the home dog.
And is that Wednesday night or Thursday morning or Wednesday morning,
for us,
Tuesday night?
In the States, yeah.
So you're going Wednesday morning, the Astros straight up to beat the Phillies, and you're going Erod 6+ for the win tomorrow or tonight whenever you're listening to this. I'm going Schwellenbach 6 in the win on the Monday night, Tuesday morning slate, and I'm going Minnesota to win one of their 4 gamers in an avalanche. It's interesting you mentioned the Astros, though, because they were in my notes for teams to kind of watch when making picks this week. Mainly because I I don't know if this is the sign of a team that is great. I think it is, or it's a sign that maybe they're kind of living on dangerous water. They have 7 one-run wins in June. We're on June 22nd right now in the United States, right? Like we still have 9 days to go. 7 of their wins this month have been by exactly 1 run, including their last win just that capped off the weekend. To me, that's a sign of a great thing, right? Like it's a team that just figures out ways to win games. They are able to close it down late. And that is crazy to me that, maybe they're not as overpowering as they used to be, but man, they just know how to win.
I guess the question for you is how many teams would have 1 run or more 1-run wins if they had Josh Hader as their closer?
Yeah, I mean, the bullpen is so important, right? Like we've talked about that ad nauseum this year, just taking a look at
21-run wins this year if they had a closer of Josh Hader's caliber, right? So I think, it's a massive testament to their relief core, and it's something they've been able to do so well. I mean, it's not just him. They've got Abreu, I think, pitching unbelievable. They've got a few guys, and it's kind of like if you haven't taken the lead by the 6th inning or tied the game, you're right up against it against the Astros. And that's why I think a game like Wednesdays where it's Framba versus Suarez, it does scream low-scoring game. It screams like Astros 2-1 up at home after 5 or 6 innings, and that could just be all she wrote.
I like it. I completely agree. All right, well, we'll leave it at that. There's 4 picks for it. Astros are hot. Others are not. That'll do it for us this week. We'll catch you on Friday for some quick weekend pick-off plays. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to Rolsey for the first 45 minutes of this, and thanks for making us some money, Spoon.
Too easy, mate. I'll chat to you during the week.